Horns.
Chill, bruh. We just started.
Oh, really? We beefing? You got on my Columbia blue? In a way, Emmanuel Acho over there looking fresh and dapper. So let's get to these NBA Finals where the Suns are looking dapper and fresh. Up 2-0 against the Bucks after a very strong performance from their top stars. Devin Booker had a game-high 31 points, and Chris Paul, CP3, added 23 points with 8 assists. CP3 said he was not surprised at all with Booker scoring output in Game 2. Take a listen.
And Book had 70 in the game before. You know what I mean? So you don't do that being shy. You don't do that being shy. And like I said, he puts the work in. That's what a lot of people don't see. You see the games, you don't see all the shots after practice and all this different type stuff. So if Book shoot it, I expect it to go in. I get mad at him when he don't shoot.
So Acho, it's time for you to shoot. Who is your early Finals MVP? Booker, Paul?
It's Book, baby, and CP3. Be cautious of what you're saying, big dog, because another topic for another day is who needs the MVP more, assuming the Suns win. Is it CP3 or is it my dog Book? But I think Book's the early Finals MVP because what we know about the Bucks is that they win games by playing good defense. On average in the playoffs, they hold teams to 103 points per game. But the Suns have given them 118 back-to-back. The reason the Suns are winning isn't because the Bucks aren't scoring. Bucks got 108 points. First two, 108 points, 105 points. On average, the Bucks only score 109 points. So the Bucks are scoring their typical average. But the Bucks usually hold opponents to only 103. The difference right now is Book. Book gave him 31 points last game without attempting a free throw. Book gave him 27 points in game 1 and was terrible from the three-point line and was marginal at best from the field. So early MVP is the real driving factor to the Suns' success. Not that Chris Paul's not the driving factor to the Suns' team, but the reason the Suns are winning games isn't because of their great chemistry, isn't because of their stifling defense, isn't because of their great leadership, isn't because they're not turning the ball over. Was because they putting up points. That's the only reason the Suns are winning these ball games right now. Bucks are doing their thing, but the reason that the Suns are winning, the separating factor is how many points the Suns are scoring. So the reason the reason Book should get MVP is because he's the best scorer.
Oh, I knew you were leaning. You know, on this show, we don't lean. We be objective, okay? We got rooting interests, but we don't lean. You were leaning there. You know what Coach said? If he leaning, just help him keep going that way he wants. I noticed you started off by saying, is it CP3 or my dog Book? Oh, your dog Book?
You like CP3.
I don't say my dog CP3.
That's my friend.
I don't say my dog.
You don't use the same vernacular. You're older than me.
I like.
You say my elder statesman.
Fresh. Look, all I know is it's CP3, and you should have stopped there. But your dog Book is a beast. We know what this is, but let's just play the game of hypotheticals, that they stay tied. Game 1, CP3 looks better. Game 2, Devin Booker. Let's just say they just keep going back and forth with that hot potato, right? If there's a tie, it's going to CP3 for the legacy play.
I agree.
We've noticed in voting interests right now, they try to get the most juice out of story, even more so than by production. Let's go to Terrell Owens and his Hall of Fame induction. And it took him not one, not two, but third ballot to get in part because they were looking at story and narrative more so than production. Same thing happens when you talk about an NBA Finals MVP. It happens fast in terms of the voting. Who we gonna give it to? Who we gonna give it to? And if it's anything of closeness, like, damn, Booker averaged this. No, Chris Paul's right there. They're going to go to Chris Paul for that legacy play. The impact credit also goes to Chris Paul leading up to these finals. Think about this team. Last year, did they make the playoffs? No. This year, they make the playoffs. They had additions, but what's the biggest addition? Chris Paul. So he's already walking in with some leverage in tow. Now, if you see how this is going to play out, let's play some of these number games as you tried to play. We don't want to use the Clippers series against Chris Paul, so I won't count it for Devin Booker as well. He has some struggles there, too, because of the mask. But let's go to that Denver series before we get to this Milwaukee series. Do you know in the Denver series that Chris Paul averaged more points per game than Devin Booker? Do you know, of course, more assists, right? But let's talk about shooting, 63% to 49%, Chris Paul favored. Let's talk about from the three, 75%. Oh, my God, compared to 31%. Chris Paul, without COVID, Devin Booker, without the mask, let's just isolate variables. Denver series, Chris Paul, he finished that one.
Yes, sir.
Right? He iced it. Even the Clippers he iced it, but I'm going to throw that out.
Of course.
Right now, we're in a position where the last 3 games, Chris Paul's been averaging 32 points a game. Chris Paul's on fire, dog. He got his COVID legs. They ready. COVID legs. He ready to go out there and finish this marathon. It's CP3.
I like where you're going with that, but let's expand on it because legacy is going to matter, assuming the Suns win. Who's going to win the MVP?
Yeah.
Booker takes the first series. Dethroned LeBron James. He had 47 points, I believe, in the closeout game. Booker takes the first series against the Lakers. Booker outperformed CP3 in that one. Chris Paul takes the second series against the Nuggets. I'm going to give you that one. Booker takes the third series. One, Chris Paul didn't even show up for the first 2 games.
Well,
he wasn't there.
But
he wasn't there.
If Chris Paul didn't show up, they still be playing Game 9, Game 10 because Devin Booker wasn't trying to close nothing out by himself, was he? Was he?
That's fair.
That's fair.
But because Chris Paul didn't even score attendance, you got to give the third series to Devin Booker. But now I look at it like this. Devin Booker has the 3rd most points in NBA postseason history in their first postseason appearance.
Yeah, he moving
behind Rick Barry, behind Julius Erving. He's only 32 points behind being the first scorer of all time in their first postseason appearance. I think that will play a factor. But let me go nuanced, because that's what we do on this great show. 2014 NBA Finals MVP was Kawhi Leonard. Not because of what Kawhi Leonard did that was so great, but because he stopped LeBron James from doing. 2015.
Wow, wait a minute.
It was. Look at the numbers.
You call Kawhi a clout chaser?
Look at the numbers.
Like he only got his because of somebody else didn't get there?
Because of what he stopped, somebody else. Same thing with Andre Iguodala. Y'all don't think that's the case. 2015. Iggy wasn't the best player on the court, but he stopped the best player on the court from being. So we can find value not necessarily in your numbers, but we can find value in your perceived impact. The only reason Chris Paul had the game he had in Game 1 was because of Devin Booker. Devin Booker's presence made the Bucks say, look, you want to know who we have to stop? We got to stop Book, which allowed CP3 to eat. How do we know that's true? Because at the end of the game, what did head coach say? Bud's going out there and said, we got to put more pressure on CP3. We have to make him a bigger focal point, which means he was not always a focal point. That's why what we saw in Game 2, Drew Holiday full court press the entire time. Drew Holiday picking up CP3 at least at the half court mark because they were never paying attention to CP3. They were paying attention to Book in Game 1, which is why CP3 ate. So with that being said, even CP3 doing as magnificent as he did in Game 1 is a testament to as good as Devin Booker is. And then in Game 2, Devin Booker just showed how good he is. Either way, it all leads back to Book and his greatness.
Well, look, let's just be real about this. Devin Booker's the better player. We know that. He's the driving force. That doesn't mean that you're going to get all of the accolade that comes from being that driving force. Steph Curry comes to mind. Has he ever won a Finals MVP? Even when they won the Finals without...
But let me push back. Let's get to the nuance, because it all comes back to Steph Curry and Kevin Durant.
Oh, God. I was trying to not say Kevin Durant, too. I said the one without KD.
I don't know if Devin Booker's a better player. He's a better scorer. You tracking with me?
No, I'm not tracking with you.
CP3,
I'm fielding with you.
CP3,
You trying to say that Devin Booker's not better than Chris Paul right now in the game of basketball? Forget who you know. I'm talking about what they show.
You might have to go CP3. But because CP3 showed up, CP3 showed up and made the Suns collectively better.
But they got better as well. That's the only thing that I don't like when people say that. You forget I got better too.
Sure.
Devin Booker got better.
Sure.
DeAndre Ayton didn't miss 25 games.
Of course.
Okay, so first of all, we're not standing here and Chris Paul added on. We're standing here and Chris Paul adds on, and then you give him all the credit for being at the top.
But don't you think that Chris Paul helped Ayton get better?
Absolutely.
Chris Paul helped Bridges get better. Chris Paul helped Booker get better.
Yes. But I think you're giving a little too much credit. Let's
to CP3?
The credit, we got to check the credit limit. You can't have the black card on this one. You got to have a limit on this one. How much credit you going to get them boys? Because Devin Booker was coming. DeAndre Ayton was coming. The team was coming. They were certain.
Book had been there for 5 years. For 5. He was coming. When was he going to show up?
Okay.
You know Chris Paul best. Well, the only reason that small interject is because Devin Booker's a better scorer. Kevin Durant's a better scorer. I think Chris Paul's a better player. I think Steph Curry's a better conduit. So I think, to your point, Booker will get the Finals MVP because he's a better scorer.
No, to my point, Steph Curry didn't get it even though he was the better player and the better scorer on the team. So he actually brings both our arguments together to prove my point, which is you don't always get it even if you're the best because of other circumstances, whether it's narrative or clutch moments, clutch shots. I always talk about how Chris Paul in game 1, you say he was eating because they were focused on Booker. Yeah, the X's and O's. You're a former player. We've been in those meetings. But when you get on that court, even though they focused on you, they make adjustments. They're like, Chris is eating. And then they can't stop those adjustments because, 1, we don't want all of a sudden Devin Booker to eat, and 2, Chris Paul's being the wedge buster. Chris Paul set the tone. I could have wrote this down.